Everyone knows the scenario. You got invited to a party and you do some small talk with people you haven't met before. Often, one of the first questions to come up is, "So, what do you do for a living?" When I give my answer to that question, there generally are two types of reactions. The first one is, "That is so cool, I envy you, and you really do have a dream job." The second one, on the other hand, and recently more common, is, "That's terrible, you're an animal abuser." So, what do I do for a living? I'm a dolphin trainer. I spend my days taking care of 8 amazing individuals. So, as someone who is dedicating her life to taking care of animals, whose passion it is to make sure that they live the most fulfilling lives, and who would do anything to make sure that their well-being is ensured, it can be hard to hear that second response to the answer of being a dolphin trainer. It makes me think a lot about how people look upon the care of animals and their perceptions towards animals living in zoological facilities. When you look at the nature of humans, you can clearly see that we are social beings. We want to belong to a group, we want to fit in, and we want to be liked. That last one you can almost take literally when you look at social media. We live in an era where people do anything for likes. Likes on Facebook, likes on Twitter, likes on Instagram. One of the easiest ways to get likes is to get people to be emotional about something. And animals are the perfect fit for that. I experienced this firsthand. Focusing on dolphins living in a zoological setting is an easy way for the media and for organizations to get likes and responses from their followers and viewers, especially when you let the viewers get emotional. Unfortunately, we human beings tend to respond more extreme to negative news rather than to positive news. This fascinated me. I have personally seen a story being twisted just to get the audience to believe something that was very different from the reality. Knowing the true story and knowing how the animals I work with are actually being taken care of, and seeing how that reality got twisted into something very different, made me realize that social media can actually have a negative influence on the well-being of animals. Maybe it sounds strange, but let me try to explain. Imagine a group of professional animal caretakers doing what they have been studying to do for years. This group includes the caretakers themselves, of course, but also veterinarians and biologists. All of a sudden, a story that comes out in the media lets people behind their phones, tablets, and computers think that they know everything there is to know about the situation and spread the word about how wrong everything is, claiming that they are the experts. It's a strange thing, because when you think about it, are you also going to tell a cardiologist how to do his job, claiming you know better? Probably you don't. But when it comes down to animals, there generally are a lot more of emotions involved in people's opinions. A loud minority is spreading word about the mistreatment of animals in zoological settings based on emotions rather than facts. I can only have respect for each and every person that loves animals, and I can feel connected to them because I share the same feeling. However, I am also a realist who tries to look at situations from the animals, specifically the individual's point of view, rather than our point of view. I'd like to tell you a story about an animal that was being loved. He was loved by millions of people from all around the world. Most of you will probably know the movie Free Willy. It's about an orca that lives by itself in a park and that befriends a teenage boy. At the end of the movie, they decide to free Willy, the orca. He jumps into the ocean and he lives happily ever after, reunited with his family that was waiting for him. It's a beautiful Hollywood story. But when the public found out that the reality was that that orca, in real life named Keiko, was still living in that same park, they thought the best thing to do was to free him and reunite him with his family, just like in the movie. Years went by, and through the generated donations from the public that all came to love Keiko, he was transported from the park where he lived into a rehabilitation facility, and from there to Iceland, where he originally came from when being caught at about 2 years old. After a reintroduction program, Keiko was eventually released back into the wild, at that time being around 24 years old. Unfortunately, this was not the happily ever after story, just like it was in the movie. Keiko died within a year, alone. And in that time that he spent in the wild, he was constantly seeking human contact, because that was all he knew. He had spent his entire life being around humans. Now, why do I tell this sad story? Because ask yourself the question, can we love an animal to death? Apparently, we can. Even though we mean so well, we love animals and we want them to have the best of lives. But is what we want for them actually what is best? Was it in the animal's best interest to be released back into the wild? We'd like to think so, but was it really? It is so easy for us to believe in a comforting story rather than in reality. Reality isn't a Hollywood movie. Reality is that it is my job to find out what triggers the animals under my care. What are their likes and what are their dislikes? How can I make sure that those talented and intelligent individuals are being motivated, enriched, and are living the best possible life? Reality is that when I think of the animals under my care, I don't see them as just a group of dolphins. I see each dolphin as an individual. I see Tucker, 37 years old and still eager to learn new stuff every day. I see Tzalka, who prefers to stay in the background and who loves to collect all the leaves that he can find and show those to us caretakers. I see Nando, who tends to be a bit easygoing and observant, and so prefers to just eat and watch all day. Reality is that when we're talking about animals under human care, the focus should not be on the phylogenetic history of animals, meaning the history of a species. The focus should be on the ontogenetic history, meaning the history of the individual. What is the individual used to? How did it develop itself? It is so dangerous for us to make assumptions and to think we know what's best for animals without taking into account their life history, their preferences, and their personalities. A lot of you will may already be familiar with the term anthropomorphism. It means attributing human characteristics onto animals. Being anthropomorphic is okay up until some point, because animals absolutely do have emotions. They couldn't survive without them. However, being too anthropomorphic can actually be dangerous to animals, meaning that we could assume that what we prefer and what we like would be the same thing as what an animal would prefer or like. It's like buying a present for someone that you don't know that well. You can buy something that you would like to get, but that doesn't mean that the person receiving it will like it as well, let alone thinking that what we like most would be the exact same thing as what an entire different species would like most. What also surprises me is that we, generally speaking, clearly prefer some type of animal species over others. We probably look for animals that we can relate to based on appearance or on intelligence. There's a lot more fuss going on about the more popular species, like dolphins, elephants, and great apes, than there is about, for example, reptiles and insects, while they are equally as important for nature's and our survival and for themselves as any other species. Why do we prefer one type of species over the other? When you look at people's response to a media hype regarding animals living in zoos and aquariums, you are likely to think that a lot of us truly care about animals' well-being. People will post on Facebook to never visit a zoo or aquarium because, according to them, those are bad for animals. They will close their computers completely satisfied with themselves, thinking they did something good. They'll walk over to the fridge, open the door, take out everything they need for dinner, and start cooking their vegetables, hopefully, and their piece of meat. Not being fully aware that that piece of meat was a living animal not too long ago that maybe didn't have the best of life. It's funny how we look at certain animal species so differently. Some we love, some we hate, some we eat. Sometimes when it hits home too close, we directly change our opinions. We want to eat meat because the taste is so good. But how about all those strong opinions on the care of animals? They don't count anymore when it comes down to meat? It does sound contradictory, doesn't it? Reality is that a lot of times when it comes down to animals, we let emotions get the better of us. It seems that rational thinking is harder when emotions are involved, and that's what I experience a lot during my time spending it taking care of animals. But luckily, there's also a good side to it, because animals inspire. They make us care, especially when you see them up and close. Actually, the funny thing is there are people who are passionately against animals living in zoological facilities, animals living under human care. And when you ask them the question, how did you get inspired to care so much about animals? Or how did you become aware of nature's beauty and its importance? Many of them, without realizing, actually answered, I watched the dolphin show when I was a kid. Or I went to the zoo and saw an elephant up and close. They got inspired by having a direct encounter with an animal. When I have the opportunity to introduce people to the animals under my care, you can clearly see that it moves them. They never expected the animals to be that big, powerful, or majestic. It gives them a perception of animals that they never had before. Their respect for and their interest in those animals grows, and with that, the desire to protect those animals. We need to be inspired. We need to be made aware of nature's beauty and its vulnerability. So much of what we know now about animals is because of zoos. They make people care about everything that we are surrounded by, and at the same time, we need much more awareness. There are so many steps that we still need to take to be able to really take care of nature. Animals are the way to reach the public. Make them care and make them aware. When living in a responsible and modern zoo with professional animal caretakers and the animals' well-being as a priority, zoo animals can be ambassadors for their wild counterparts. I made my life about animals, caring for them and trying to do whatever I can to help those in the wild. Now, why do I think this story should be told? Because I absolutely love animals. And I think animals should be loved for the beings that they are, not for what we want them to be. Thank you so much.